All right, cool. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and start with. Okay, so you're handling the benefit for Rainey.
Yes.
Explain these benefits that you've actually been getting that you've been a part of here in the community.
Sure.
And then kind of give us a brief update on what's going on with this, because a lot of the stuff that you handle is very, very time sensitive.
Right.
A, and then B, I mean, dude, it's waking up and doing these types of things throughout the community has to be a humbling experience as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, just run us through, what's it like to do what you're doing right now for kids and these benefits?
Well, I'm currently a teacher also. So I work at a charter school I got a few hats that I wear. I'm a PE teacher, I'm an art teacher, I'm a shop teacher, and I'm the safety director. So I do a lot of different things at the school. So I've been working with kids at the school here for almost 4 years now. But before that, I owned a gym in Illinois, which I was teaching kids as also. So the whole working with kids and working with the community has always been part of my life. So I have a mutual friend of the family of this little girl right now. Rainey is her name, who I just found out, I want to say maybe a month ago, that she's 5 years old and she was diagnosed with cancer. And so I know the family has to travel a lot to take her back and forth to Pensacola for the hospital visits. I know mom, I'm not sure if dad's working. I know mom is not working currently. So I said, well, let's try to do something. Let's reach out to some people and see if anybody's willing to help. And I literally just posted on my Facebook page, this is what's going on. Is there anybody willing to help? And House of Henry jumped right on it. And they said, let's do something. I said, that sounds good to me. Just let me know what you need me to do. And so they said, we're going to work on this. We're going to work on the idea of what we're going to do. And they're going to call it Rainbow for Rainey. And it's going to be on March the 14th. It's a Friday night. It's actually the first night of spring break, essentially, for us. And from 5 to 7, they're going to be selling tickets. They haven't started selling them yet, but there is an event page on Facebook, on House of Henry's page, and it's also on mine, linked on mine as well. And so it's going to be a dinner where they have like a 4-course Irish meal with spirits and Irish beer and all that stuff. And all the proceeds are going to go to the family. So that is my most recent thing. I actually went to what's called Wrestle for Cancer, professional wrestling group here in Panama City, put on an event, and they were raising money for one of their wrestlers that was also diagnosed with cancer. And so I went out there with a couple friends of mine, and we just did photo ops for them. Cops for Kids, I do events for them. And I've done United Way, Rooms with a Purpose, who also does like room makeovers for children that are either have a terminal illness or special needs, things like that. So anything that helps not just kids, but even adults that I can help with, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, my hat goes off to you, dude, because time is just so hard to get back, and you've got kids yourself, you got a family, so like even taking this time out to spend away from your family to be able to help out with like causes like this, dude, that's like you doing something like that really opens my eyes, the fact that there still are good people in the world. Because I like to think, on a daily where it's like, oh, you know what, the human heart really is good. It's just bad things get in the way. That's and it keeps people from like staying on like this pure path. But the fact that you're giving back to the community like you have, dude, that's freaking dope. I think that's great.
Well, thank you.
But let's get kind of like into who you are as well, like the guy behind the
behind
mask.
All this.
So law enforcement background.
Yes, sir.
Ninja Warrior. And the $1 Million Mile. With Tim Tebow. What season?
There was only one season of that, and I was on the premiere episode.
Oh, really? There was only
just one season of that one. Okay. That was actually co-produced by LeBron James too.
I saw that as well. So did you get to meet these guys?
Tebow I did, but not LeBron. LeBron wasn't out there for the filming. So he was just part of the money behind it, basically. Yeah,
so how did that go? Because I haven't watched it. So
it was in part because I had already competed on American Ninja Warrior 4 years earlier. And then I had my gym, which my gym that I owned in Illinois was an all obstacle course training gym and a martial arts studio also. But the fitness part was all obstacle courses. And so I basically built it from the ground up. all the obstacles. And so through American Ninja Warrior and through some other venues, they found out about my gym. They're like, I don't know if they just searched obstacle course gyms, the $1 Million Mile, and their producers, but they reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to be having this show. Do you have any members that are interested? And I'm like, members? I said, am I too old at 40 back then at 40 to try out myself? They're like, well, no, you can try out. So let's do a Zoom. And we did a Zoom and with initially one of the casting producers. And then a couple months later, it was the round table with all of CBS's executives that I was on a Zoom call with, and they decided to pick me. So they flew me out to LA, and we did what basically like a football combine out there. They wanted to make sure that you guys were fit enough to be on the show, right? So they put us through the ringer. Some things even such as diving into a pool and having to retrieve rings off the bottom of the pool and without coming up for a breath of water, things like that. That was really awesome. That was so cool. Like I enjoyed it because I was out there with a lot of elite obstacle course racers, and even there was a few Olympic athletes out there. So I'm getting to compete and do all these things with them. And then basically they sent us home and said, we'll be in contact with you in the next month or so if you get selected. So out of the, I don't know how many people showed up, lots, because we were in separate groups. But a month later, they gave me a call and they said, would you like to come back out to LA and be on the show, tape the show? I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. So then they flew me back out to LA, and I was out there for a few days and did my course run, and then they sent me right back on a plane, and I was back in Illinois.
Wow. Yeah, these obstacle course things, it seems like those gyms are kind of building up now.
They are.
How do you even get into something like that?
Well, American Ninja Warrior has been probably one of the biggest promotional bases for it because it's a very, family-friendly show.
Yeah.
Kids are very interested in it. And they actually have national and international obstacle course leagues now where kids can compete and adults can compete and move on to like the finals, right? So a lot of the kids that were at my gym, that were training with me at my gym, went on American Ninja Warrior Junior when that was still airing. I think that has since, they're not doing American Ninja Warrior Junior on TV anymore, but they have all these national competitions at gyms throughout the country that they can go compete at. And they basically work their way up the standings and go to the finals at the end and win or not, So just like any other sport, basically.
Yeah, I got to do an obstacle course that was near Nashville when I lived when I was living up at Fort Campbell, and the particular obstacle course that it was like a gym or whatever, but the balls that you grab, it's all grip strength.
Yes,
100%.
It is, and strength to weight ratio.
Yeah,
huge.
Your whole body on basically just your grip.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are like, no, man, it's not that stuff is extremely difficult.
Which is why a lot of rock climbers do very well at it, because they're already used to hanging on to like they test themselves and they push themselves to just their fingertips on a little tiny rock and then maybe even jump to another one. So it's a great way of getting exercise without just doing the regular, I got to go to the gym, get on the treadmill, hit the bench, do things like that. So
and then kids are getting into it.
I
think I saw like a TikTok the other day of like some kid that just like, it was like a gym or something, and he went all the way around, and the stuff that he was doing, I'm like, you're talking like 6, 7 years old, and these kids are freaking, they're ninjas.
Yeah. Well, my daughter was 6 years old when she first started training at my gym, and so and when we take her to competition, she was winning her competitions at 6, beating boys, beating girls, beating everybody in her age group. So she's now, since we moved here, we haven't been doing that, but they brought me at the school to build an obstacle course. So I actually have an obstacle course at the school.
I heard.
Yes. So the kids get to get a little bit of that training, that Ninja Warrior training at the school.
Yeah, and that is Rising Leaders, and they've changed a lot over the years. They've gotten. I think that they're doing a really good job over there. Of course, a little biased. My mom's teacher there.
Yeah.
So, so the $1 Million Mile, Ninja Warrior, and then having that gym. But so you're a sheriff's deputy.
I started as a sheriff's deputy in 2006. Same year I got married, and it wasn't a good fit for my wife and I. So I left the sheriff's department and went to the city. So I started working at the city of Bethalto after that. So I worked with the sheriff's department for about a year, and then my wife was like, "This isn't good," because working for county is a little bit different than working for the city you live in. If you work for county, what they do is they split you up to like North End, South End, East End, West End, right? And when I got hired, they stuck me straight in the South End, which meant I lived in the North End. My wife didn't get to see me during those 12-hour shifts, right? And so it was like, it was okay. I enjoyed it. I liked doing what I did, but it was already strenuous on a brand new marriage, working midnights, jumping into a shift where I'm 3 months of midnights on 12-hour shifts, and she's in a new house in a new city because we moved out of the city that we were both from. And so I made a decision. I said, listen, if this isn't working out for you, let's try something else. And I actually spoke to the lieutenant at the time at the city police department. He goes, that's not an issue at all. If you work for the city that you live in, if you want to stop by, if you have time, if you're not on a call and you have time and you want to stop in and tuck your kids in at night, or you want to stop in and see your wife, you have the time, you can do that. And I said, would you mind telling my wife this? Would you mind telling her the same thing and put her at ease at me going back into this? Absolutely. So he had a phone call conversation with her, and she was like, all right, if this is really what you want to do, go for it.
That's really an aspect of law enforcement that a lot of people don't talk about. We just had on pretty popular radio show host that came on yesterday, and one of the things that we had really discussed in detail was about the training of law enforcement nowadays. And we really stuck hard on that, but we really didn't talk about the aspect of like what officers' home lives are like,
right,
and the stress that it actually takes on it. A lot of times people are like, cops they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and then sometimes, you'll catch them at a bad moment, or a bad part of their shift or whatever, and then you hold every single police officer that you see after that in the same light.
Yep.
But everybody's a human being,
yeah,
and they're gonna make mistakes. They're not gonna handle situations necessarily the way that you think that things should be. Yep. Again, what you're saying, when was the last time that they were able to tuck their kids in? When was the last time they got to see their wife?
Right.
When was
Right.
They just came from a bad traffic accident or worse.
Yep.
Or they just came from someone that got shot to death, right at an intersection.
Yep.
I mean, it could
Yep.
be anything. And
Absolutely.
Being in that particular career field, it's kind of interesting how you are humble enough to even say, like, hey, it played a toll on my marriage.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys don't talk about that part.
Right. No, it really does. And I mean, one of the things they told us in the academy, and this was all those years ago, was that law enforcement has one of the highest divorce rates of any career. And there's no wonder, the hours that we work. I mean, we were on, so at the sheriff's department, we were on 3-month rotations from midnights to days, and all 12-hour shifts. When I went to the city, we were on 2-week rotations of midnights, 6 to 6 or 6 to 6 daylight. So you don't even have time to get used to, your body doesn't have time to get acclimated to 2 weeks of midnights before you're right back on days. So your eating is off, your sleep is off, and 12-hour shift is when you're actually working on the street. There's the reports that you have to write afterwards. A lot of times you don't have time during your shift to write those reports, so you're working 16 hours to try to catch up all the paperwork afterwards. So yeah, it definitely takes a toll. Yeah,
I know a little bit about sleep deprivation and getting used to a specific schedule, and a lot of people don't understand the toll that takes on like health wise, like what
absolutely.
You're talking about, like cortisol levels, adrenal glands, because you're running on nothing but caffeine,
right.
So you're burning up everything.
Yep.
I mean, it could get really sticky. That conversation gets really sticky really quick, but I think it needs to be talked about.
For sure.
I don't think that it is talked about enough in our communities. The stresses that law enforcement go through. All we do is we say, our law enforcement's doing a good job. Crime rate is down by this amount, but they don't talk about for everything there's a price.
Yes.
And so who's paying the ultimate price to be able to get those crime rates down and be able to get those units out to the officer is paying that price, and his family does too.
Yes.
So that's a huge deal. Redirect. So Rainey, what type of cancer does she have?
It's a bone cancer. And well, they're actually concerned that it may have moved. I know she was having a couple more scans done. They thought maybe it would go into her head, and they thought there was something going on in her chest. Whatever the specific, don't ask me what the name of it is. It's a very long name, but she has to be on chemo for a full year. So just to try to get this taken care of. Now, she just got over, I think, having flu A while also going through all this. This poor little kid has just had, a rough go here lately. So, and her mom is pretty good at sharing things, like how her updates, like almost daily, right? So I'm seeing them, I'm like, man, I feel like I could do more. I don't know how, but I feel like there's more I could do than just this, and I want to, and I feel like that not just about Rainey, but a lot of the situations. And one of the reasons why I try to do so much volunteer work with, law enforcement, military, is because I understand, and I know what their families go through. So if me dressing up like this to go visit their children, help them, their kids put smiles on their face, that's it. That's my biggest thing.
How did you get started? Like, did you just wake up one day and you put on a suit? Like,
crazy. So, being that I lived in Illinois, I was in Southern Illinois. So I was basically about 20 minutes from St. Louis, Missouri. We were right on the edge of Missouri, Illinois. Mm-hmm. Southern Illinoisans don't really talk about Chicago much because it's a different animal altogether. Now, I've been to Chicago quite a few times, but when I say Illinois, I'm from Illinois, everybody automatically assumes Chicago. I'm like, no, think East St. Louis, right? Because the 3 years, for 3 years in my law enforcement career, I worked undercover as a narcotics agent. And so we worked in East St. Louis, and we worked in a lot of those areas. And that was, people were like, Chicago. No. Just go down south a little bit further towards St. Louis, and there's a whole other area right there. Now, in Illinois, I was running my gym. So I was a police officer total for 13 years. I opened my gym up, and I worked full-time for just a little bit as a sergeant. I was a sergeant at the police department and running my gym. So I was doing both. So I'd work a 12-hour shift and then go work at my gym after that, burning the candle at absolute both ends. I made a decision, I'm going to cut back. I'm going to go to part-time at the police department and push my gym because things were going well. I was like, the numbers look good. Let's try it, And we did a lot of praying because I wouldn't do anything if I didn't feel like a door was opening. If I felt like there's no way this is going to happen, I'm trying to force it to happen. It's not on me, right? I can't make those decisions. So the doors were opening, and so 1 year of part-time, actually, yes, 1 year I went full-time to the gym, and the gym just exploded because I was able to be there more and offer more classes, and everything was great until 2020.
No.
Everything was great until 2020, and in Illinois, it was real bad. We were mandated to close our gym. It wasn't even a matter, listen, we started with and I was watching the news daily for updates, but okay, today we have to start wearing masks. We'll do it. Next, it's you got to have, if you're in an atmosphere like that, you got to make sure that you're maintaining that 6 feet of space between. Okay, we'll work on this. So because parents like to come in and watch their children do the obstacles, right, and compete and things like that. So then it was like, okay, I'm gonna take out half my chairs and make sure my chairs are measured at 6 feet apart. We did everything. And then the next month came by and it's like, sorry, you can't be in business anymore. That hurt because I'm like, well, I left law enforcement to do this. And now all of a sudden, something that was so popular. And the families at the gym were awesome. They were like, we don't want you to end up closing. We'll do it. We'll keep paying our monthly membership even though you're not open. We had a lot of families that stepped forward. I'm like, I appreciate it, but don't do that, right? But people will do what they want to do if it's on their heart. So during that time of being closed, I was in the gym by myself, cleaning, doing whatever, and just sitting there thinking, what can I do? Because I am not a just sit around and wait for something to happen person. If I've got any time, it drives me nuts. I've got to be busy all the time. And so I'd purchased a suit, not this one, definitely not this one, back in like 2018. And it was not an expensive suit. It was a cheaper suit. I've always been a fan of Captain America, just for what Captain America stands for, what, the ideology behind it, everything. And I was like, I'm sure some of my students from the gym would appreciate seeing Captain America run by their house. And it gives me a way to stay in shape, get out, go do something in the community. So I threw the suit on, threw the shield on my back, and would just run through the community, different neighborhoods. I'd post a Facebook post saying, hey, Captain America's gonna be in your neighborhood on this date, this time. If you guys wanna stand, if you want your kids to stand at the front door, I'll wave to them as I'd run by. Some parents were like, can they come out to the road? Yeah, that's fine. They can come out to the road. I'll say hi to them as they're standing on the street. Some kids came out dressed up, but that's basically what it was. It was, how can I still affect the community in a positive way when basically my livelihood's been taken away from me, but I can still do something, right? So that's where it started. And the news got a hold that I was doing that. And then they reached out to me and they wanted to do that story, that little Zoom story they did on it. And that's where it went from there. So fast forward a year later, and we moved to Florida. So we're here. And 2021 is when we moved here.
So do you think it was more of, God calling you to do something like that, to be able to share positive light?
Absolutely. And listen, I mean, I can sit here and say, oh, I had a great idea. No, I mean, it was already there. It was just a matter of me realizing this is in front of me, use it, But no, nothing I've done is by coincidence. Moving here was not by coincidence. There was a reason I was brought here, and there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You're the real deal. And when I say that is that there's a lot of people out there in the community that like to talk about, their, about like what they do for the community on a positive level. Anybody can stroke a check. Dude, that does not. I mean, I get it. Yep. Does it take something to make money? For some people, yeah. For some people, no.
Right.
I know a lot of people where, money has just been passed down through your family for so long. So it's stroking a check and being like, oh, this is good for the community, and the community will use it, and it's good. But someone like you, where it's like, no, dude, I just have a heart where I want to be able to bring as much positive light to my community as possible. I want kids to have some sort of hope, especially through the through the COVID. The COVID era of bullcrap, from 2020 up to what? Did it end until 2023?
Just something like that, yeah.
There was nothing positive to look forward to on a daily. And even for kids, you got to stay inside, or, you got to go outside and play, but you can't see your friends. Right. You can't go play, ball. You can't. Now Florida was a completely different story. This is a free state. This is DeSantis country. Right. And I mean, he handled it exactly the way that it should have been. So, so what exactly brought you here, though?
So my parents have lived here for roughly 24 years now, and they were already down here. Listen, growing up, Panama City Beach was my second home. Like, we came probably 2-3 times a year here, and my parents knew years ago they were going to move here, so they moved here. And so then it was just myself and my family up north. And, my parents have gotten older, as they do, and have had health issues. And so being up there, my hands were kind of tied. I couldn't, 750 miles away. It's like, if something happens, there's not going to be anybody there for them. Because the rest of my family's up north. They're sisters, brothers, and that. And so, we made the decision to sell the gym. So after COVID, we actually, once we were able to open back up, our numbers shot through the roof at the gym.
I'm sure they did.
And like, everybody was itching to get back into that. Yeah. And so we were doing really well. And I'm talking to my wife again. I'm like, I feel like this is a good time. Like, if we're going to make the move, this is when it needs to be done. Well, we just came down on vacation. We came down to see my parents. And with my parents too, they were here for Michael. Like, and that was a whole nother thing. I know we could talk about that, a whole show on that. But just getting down here after the fact, to try to find out if they're okay. They had no cell service, right? There was nothing. I couldn't get a hold of them, and they stayed. It was like, so are they okay? What's going on?
Where do they live exactly?
They live down close to Pier Park.
Okay.
So they live close to Pier. So their area was actually okay.
Yeah.
But when we came down to finally see that they were okay, I mean, we drove through Panama City. I'm like, my goodness, just across the bridge, how much more devastation there was. But it was a scary time. So, 2018. So now, 2021, we're in a position where I had somebody that wanted to purchase the gym. Okay, let's entertain it. Neither of us were gonna walk down here to jobs. We weren't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go back in law enforcement when I get here? And listen, I've talked to Tommy, I've talked to Mark, I've talked to Ricky, I've talked to all the chiefs and sheriffs. Trust me, there's always a part of me that will enjoy and miss law enforcement. Yeah. I think once you've done it, it's in your blood, right? And there's guys that I'll talk to down here, and they're like, this guy Tim, he's a police officer. I said, former. No. Once you're a police officer, you're always a police officer. I said, I understand, but I still don't, former police officer. But that's that brotherhood, right? And I know you know what that's about. Military is the exact same way. We just do it on a on our land, right? So, but we go through the things, we go through the bad times, we go through all that. So there's a brotherhood that's built up, and anytime I talk to another police officer, I'm like, let's exchange stories, man. Like, how are things going for you? Because I know where he's at and what he's doing. We live right next door to a police officer, and so and he's newer, he's a younger guy. So I'm like, hey, how you doing? Things going good, and we check in with him from time to time. But where was I going with that? I just went totally off tangent.
I just had asked you, what brought you here.
So my parents, their health.
Yeah.
So their health brought me here. So I was able to. It couldn't have worked out better. Like, sold the house, sold the gym. We were on vacation, came down here, and they were building a subdivision. Like, this is not a bad area. Yeah. It looks okay. We put money down on a house right then and there before I didn't have a job yet. And then I checked Indeed one day, found a job for a PE coach. I'm like, well, I can do PE. I can do this. I'd already done all the other stuff that with American Ninja Warrior, this, that. I wasn't an athletic kid really when I was little, but when I got into college, that's when I came into my own. And so the teaching kids classes, the obstacle classes, and the martial arts classes at my gym, I'm like, this is going to be sweet. Well, my Zoom interview, the principal actually says, well, we're looking for something kind of different. I said, well, I have a gym here that I teach obstacle course training. She goes, really? She goes, that's actually what we're looking for. I said, really? I said, that's kind of strange. It's not like it was in the Indeed thing. We're looking for somebody to teach obstacle course. But she said, that's what we're looking for. I'm like, this is crazy. There's a door just opened right up. And of course, I took the offer right there on the Zoom call. And then I flew down like a week later just to see what the school looked like. I hadn't even seen the school yet, and I accepted the job, right? So everything was lined up for us to be here. And so it was it was really easy. It shouldn't have been as easy as it was to sell a business, sell a house, pick up your family without jobs, and just move to Florida. But that was God's will. So he opened those doors.
Yeah, sometimes, especially, me in my own life, like, there's been some things that have just been like, that seemed like that was really easy. I don't understand why it was that easy. It's
right.
like, it's probably because that's where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, right.
So, actually, you just got done talking about sitting down with all of our local law enforcement. I know you said Tommy Ford and Ricky Rainey over in Lynn Haven. I just sat down with Ricky 3 days ago. I stopped by. I was actually, I've actually had a lot of requests from people who live in Lynn Haven that have sent me messages and been like, hey, have you thought about having the police chief on?
Yeah.
And so I stopped by, I talked to him. He's actually not going to come on, but I think he's sending one of his higher up officers to come on the show. But I sat down, I talked to him. Man, dude, so I've known Ricky since I was like a freaking kid.
Yeah.
He was really involved with upward basketball with my brother's basketball team growing up at First Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And so I really have not sat down with him or talked to him really since then. I mean, I see him at church every once in a while because he's a deacon. But I sat down, I talked to that guy, and man, I really, of course, I live in Lynn Haven.
Right.
So we're one of the safest cities in the state of Florida per capita. And then it's like one of the top 10 it's in the top 20, top 10 safest cities per capita in the United States.
Right. So
we're actually doing really, really well in Lynn Haven. And then our crime rate has gone down by, I think, something stupid like another 14.1%. So it's like everything's run so smoothly. And when I sat down and I talked to him, I've never talked to a law enforcement officer that was as humble as he was with me. And he had no reason to be that way with me because I'm a nobody.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. And man, when you brought him up, I just had to do that shout out to him because living in Lynn Haven and my two kids and the stuff that the Lynn Haven Police Department, I think, is the most professional law enforcement agency that is in Bay County.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased because I live in Lynn Haven.
For sure,
but,
for sure.
Those guys are great over there. Is there a reason why you didn't go back into law enforcement, though, when you came back?
Well, again, there's part of me that will always miss it. But because of what I'm doing right now, Listen, there's times when running and gunning and chasing the bad guys, foot chases. Like back in the day, I was a bird dog. Somebody runs and I'm chasing after them, and they knew like and that's that's why I got picked for being on $1 Million Mile. That's why I was running fast. It was always like a gift, right? Is to chase somebody down. I was fast, but I found the most not success, but the community service part of the job was my bread and butter. And that's why it really hasn't changed. That's why what I'm doing now is so much, it's different, right? But I'm still serving the community on a different level. Being a teacher, being able to impact a student's life, to me it's so much, I don't want to say it's more fulfilling, but it's fulfilling on a different level. And, law enforcement, you have the opportunity to do that too. Little kids, when they grow up or when they're real little, they want to be a firefighter or a police officer. That's your things. But it loses its luster, unfortunately, as people get older. And so I feel like where I'm at right now, being able to be a good influence to my students and on lots of different levels, because it's not just, you're going to be in there and be a teacher. Well, I'm a PE teacher, right? So that's like the cool class. But now I'm an art teacher and I'm a shop teacher. So I'm giving back some skills that they'll be able to use, when they grow up someday. But it's so fulfilling to be able to do that. Back to Ricky just for a second, because I don't want to miss this one and go past it. When we came down here on vacation before we moved here, we were driving around Lynn Haven. I didn't know anything about Lynn Haven. I only knew about Panama City Beach. I never knew anything about Panama City, Callaway, Lynn Haven, none of that, right? And so I reached out to Lynn Haven Police Department and said, hey, what are some good neighborhoods to look at for houses?
You called the cop. You called the cops to figure out what the.
Absolutely.
I got something to say.
Listen, police officer to police officer. What's the best neighborhood? What neighborhood would you?
They're gonna know.
They're gonna know. What's your reports look like, right? They're gonna know.
And they answered and they told you.
And they did more than that, because the Chief Rainey, said, "Why don't you swing by the police office, the police department, and I'm gonna give you a ride." He doesn't know me. I'm from Illinois. He doesn't know who I am. And he put me in his...
When was this?
Had to be 2021.
2021?
Yeah.
Okay.
Put me in the passenger seat of his squad and drove me around Lynn Haven to show me all the communities. Showed me all of them. I had no idea here's a school, here's this. Can
you believe he just told me, the other day that, I didn't know this. My father-in-law came down back in December and he had locked his keys in his truck. Mm-hmm. And I think he ended up getting like a Pop-A-Lock or some company to come out and pop that. And I think it cost like $160 to $100 or something like that. But Ricky just told me the other day, he said his biggest goal right now is to bring the law enforcement side of things back to the customer service aspect of the community, which is what he believes that the police force should be. Yeah. He flat out told me, he says, every single one of these patrol cars, they have a
locking tool.
Yeah, they have a locking tool, and they also have a jump box. Yeah. So he's like, he's like, so like if you ever lock your keys in your car, whatever, we'll come and pop the lock and we'll let you in your vehicle. And that's a free service. If you need to jump, we're gonna come and do that. Mm-hmm. And I was just sitting there and I was like, oh my God, what? And he's like, you just call up here and we'll do it.
Yep, that's actually what my police department in Illinois did. We did that all the time. We did what was called a lockout.
It's a good way to get the law enforcement into the community on a positive note. Yeah, they're not coming out to catch a bad guy. They're coming out because it's like, hey, we want to help. Yep. But it's also good when you see that police presence. Yeah. So I live in Hawks Landing, which is right behind Bay Haven. Okay. And dude, it's like clockwork. We have cops that come through there, do the roundabouts, drive out, and then, I see it, every once or twice a week. Yeah. I mean, dude, I don't, when I lived in St. Andrews, actually, I lived one road over from Frankfurt, by Rising Leaders. Yeah. It's a little bit of a rough area over there. Yeah. And we had a townhouse, and when cops came by that area, though, it was always a bad thing, right? Because they're looking for somebody, they're making an arrest. I mean, they're kind of in the inner city limits, and so. But on a positive note, to be able to see law enforcement driving around the neighborhood, is great.
And I don't want to forget Bay County Sheriff's Department and Panama City, because they both have community policing divisions also. And I work a lot with Panama City's policing division, police division, or community police division, because they come out to the school. I have them out regularly to talk to the students. Tommy Ford has a great program. They're out all the time. So coming up in April, April 28th is actually National Superhero Day, right? So that's on a Monday. So we're going to observe it on Friday because we have half days on Friday at our school. So this will be my 3rd year doing it. So it's National Superhero Day, but we like to use it to honor local superheroes. So we reach out to the departments and firefighters and police officers and all that, and we bring them to the school so kids can go out and see their cars, see the trucks, things like that, and we honor them as national superheroes, right? So I dress up. The kids can dress up if they want to. Also, a lot of the kids will dress up as police officers or firemen, EMTs, nurses, doctors, things like that, and we have them all in. So I enjoy working with literally every department I've talked to, and I've talked to all the chiefs, the sheriff. I enjoy every one of them.
Well, I'll tell you, Panel City, back when I was a kid growing up, was very. We were just talking about this. I think I've talked about this with anybody who's come on to talk about the city. I mean, Josh Street, Brian Granger, Alan Branch. I've talked to all of them about this, but it's like back in the day, like me growing up, Panama City was rough, and law enforcement response times very, very low, or very, very
slow.
Yeah, slow. Now, I mean, dude, you spit in that direction, you'll hit a cop car. Yeah. You'll hit a patrol vehicle. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. I felt really, really good back during Christmas because, again, Harrison Avenue, if you used to come back here and visit back when, downtown was not a place to be, especially after dark.
And it is so nice now.
Who was it that just came on the other day? They were like, dude, back in the 80s and 90s, you could go downtown Panama City and fire a gun and nobody would even know about it. Like nobody was even down there.
Right.
And so they have built that up, the police department, a lot. And when I go downtown, when I'm in the city limits of Panama, I don't worry about the safety of my family when I go down there because I'm like, dude, the response time is going to be nothing.
And they've always got something, they have a lot of now, they have a lot of events downtown, where they shut the streets down and things like that. And they always have, their officers are always out there. So I've become pretty good friends with some of them. And, whether it's the Sheriff's Department, Lynn Haven, Panama City, like anytime I see them, I got to go up and talk to them.
But COVID was a big culprit in that too. I think Josh Street said it the other day. It was like a lot. Because I was complaining, I was like, dude, so many people moved here after COVID to get away from, whatever state they were in because of all the lockdown stuff and everything. I'm like, our town is blowing up and there's, hardly, and he goes, yeah, but we got a lot of good trained law enforcement that came to this area to be able to help build up our law enforcement here.
Right.
Because, and this is not me making a stab or anything. I'll make a stab at this. Low funding police departments and sheriff's departments and everything like that. That's the reason why you see a lot of the mistakes that are made throughout the nation. Sure. I'm a big believer in, in the military, we have a saying, especially, combat arms jobs. It's like, you don't practice, to get everything right. You practice to never get anything wrong.
Right.
Right. So like the whole thing about it is like, if we're able to start putting these guys through better training, we're going to see these issues throughout the country dwindle. But a lot of these departments that are up north, they have better funding.
Oh, yes.
And they're getting better training. And that's what somebody said to me the other day, and it was kind of funny. And I think you can attest to this. How long were you in law enforcement?
13 years.
Oh, yeah. You're definitely going to know where I'm coming from. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, some of the best trained police officers are guys that, have come from combat jobs in the military. And I said, no, I think they're the worst because it's not the same thing.
It's not the same
thing. It is not the same thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys go straight from military jobs like mine, where your job is to, annihilate a threat.
Right.
And then you go out to the real world and you have that same mentality. It's just not going to be. That's the reason why officers that have this willingness to help and they are professional. Yeah. A cop that comes up to me, hey, sir, how's it going today? Get your driver's license, registration for me. I just got to go back. Got to run this real quick.
Right.
I'm handing it to him and he's going, man, you seem like you're in a little bit of a hurry. Where are we headed today? And it's like, and I'm headed to such. All right, man, just sit tight. I'll be right back. And then it makes it hard because you see these videos all the time where people are like, and I'm sure you've dealt with it being a cop, where it's like I have rights. I'm not gonna put down the window. I'm not gonna talk to you. I don't have to talk to you. And it's like, and so cops that have the attitude of like this over, like you will, that right there, it's never gonna work. No. And so, officers that have that attitude, but I've noticed a lot of that here in this town. I've never really had a good experience with an officer.
Right.
But when I lived out of state, Tennessee, I've been pulled over in Alabama. I've had an altercation that happened in Tennessee when I lived there, and so like those are the only two states that. But like it's a completely different experience. Yeah. And I've noticed this, and so like down here, when Josh said that the other day, where it's like we actually brought in, officers that were coming that had better training because they're better funded up there. Right. That right there was like an eye opener to me, where I'm like, well, you know what? It's probably a good thing. Sheriff's Department does a great job. The only thing about the Sheriff's Department is, man, I still think that they're. It seems like what they cover being the large amount, like what you're talking about, like, oh, we're going to cover North Bay County, South Bay County. When you start getting up, up off of Highway 20 and in those areas and stuff like that, with like those, it seems like that is a task in itself to be able to cover, like, because it's just so much to cover. But again, I don't know much about that side of law enforcement.
Well, I'm not that far up, but I'm on 231 up near Cato.
Okay.
So we're North Bay, close to North Bay Haven is. Yep. And I will tell you this, we recently had an incident in our neighborhood. I don't know the details of it, but it started with one deputy and a subject that lived in our neighborhood at the time. He was renting a house. And I was making sure the deputy was okay by standing outside front. And I was like, hey, do you need help? Do you need help? Because if this guy's going to give you a problem, you can always assist, right? And it wasn't like 5 minutes later, here come about 8 more cars from all different directions. So the response time was actually pretty impressive, considering it's a county, because I'm in county venue. Considering it's in county, the guys that got there pretty quick. So I was like, well, my hat's off to you guys because you got here. So, but it was impressive. I was like, he's out here by himself, and I know that feeling because I was in the sticks, Southern Illinois, when working for county. You could be out like driving a dirt road and it's somebody's driveway, and you're out there all alone at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And if your nearest backup could be a while away. So when you're out there by yourself like that, I said, well, this is pretty good. These guys got here this quick. So
I think it's good what you're doing at the school too, though, because you're also building a mental, like you're building this mental structure with children to where it's safe to talk to law enforcement.
Yes.
Because right now, and I was just saying this the other night, like when you talk to law enforcement normally, it's never for a good thing. No. It's normally because you were breaking the law. Right. Like you were speeding. Yeah. You made some sort of, illegal driving maneuver or whatever, or, worse, there's some sort of domestic issue. So like you don't have positive, you don't really have positive experiences with law enforcement. And so to get that started at a young age, to get to get children used to being like, hey, these guys are okay to talk to. They are here to help. Yeah. Because once they get older, it kind of goes away. Right. And to be honest with you, as a child growing up, I don't remember, maybe like once or twice growing up
having that interaction
where a cop came and talked at a school thing. I mean, we had the DARE program.
That was it. Yeah.
Me too. And that's when we would just talk to a drug cop that would come up there and he, has a coloring book or something, and it's just like, that's not a realistic representation of what, law enforcement really does. Right. But, I think that's a really good thing. And I think they need to be involved in more of these things. I think when I see these TikToks or these videos or reels that come along on Facebook where a cop is skateboarding in the neighborhood with some kids, hey, let me show you how to do a kickflip while I'm wearing all my gear, or so, I see that kind of stuff and I'm like, That's what a cop is all about.
Right.
Like that right there, or at least in my opinion, that's what it should be about.
100%.
Because you want to be that type of person where somebody's going to come and say, hey, there's something going on over here and somebody needs to check this out.
Right.
Rather than, oh, no, don't go talk to him because you don't want to end up in cuffs, because of, and being scared. Yep. So, but it seems like you have a lot of experience with that as well.
I do. And the thing is, like, I'm kind of an oddity. And it throws people back when they hear me say this. I didn't go to school to be a police officer. I went to school. I have an art degree.
Oh, really?
I have a degree in studio art. I'm an artist that became a police officer. And everybody was like, how did that happen? I'll tell you how that happened. I graduated in 2001 from university. What happened in 2001 that changed art for everybody? That changed it for everybody.
Yeah.
I had spoken to a recruiter before I went into college, and I spoke to one after college, the military recruiters. And for me, even though I was very close on the edge especially after graduating college to going into OCS and all that. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to do police officer. I think that I want to be in the community. I want to affect my community. Yeah. And so when my students, like, I just started teaching art to high school students this year. They were all like, we didn't know you could do art. I'm like, that's what I went to school for. That was my degree, is in art. Like, we knew you were a police officer. I said, yeah, but I'm not just a police officer. I wasn't just a police officer. There's way more levels and way more layers to a person than just what they do for a job, right? So on that same note, like, I want students, the community, to know that police officers, and that's why I do so much work with the police officers. Like, they don't, and Captain America, who's this guy that's with the police department, used to be a police officer. Yeah. But I'm showing you there's so many different layers to just an individual. Right?
A person is more complex than what people. It's always funny to me, because I've gone to counseling and talked to therapists and stuff like, everybody's got issues.
Yep. And
you need somebody to talk to sometimes. So, but it's always funny how, like, you get psychoanalyzed by some of these people and they base it on, like, a very, very the minuscule part of your life.
Yes.
Like, you're judging this based on this, that, and the other, but you have to know somebody's entire life to really know.
Absolutely.
And everybody's an onion. Shrek.
Right.
He flat out told us that.
I'm telling you.
And there's plenty of those layers. Art degree.
Yeah.
What's your favorite art?
Mixed media. Listen, when you go to college for art, especially studio art, you take every art class that they offer.
So what is studio art?
Studio art is literally you're working in a studio, right? So it could be anything from illustration, it could be oil painting, it could be sculpture, it could be metalsmithing, it could be glass blowing, it could be textiles, it could be screen print. There's so many, and I've taken them all. I've done, figure drawing. My focus was graphic design. So it was studio art with a focus in graphic design, and my minor was drawing. So, but I enjoy just about every aspect of it, which is kind of cool because this, I had to put this together. This isn't something you can just buy.
Oh, really? You did this?
This was 4 different prop makers, and then I compiled it all together. The helmet came from one prop maker here in Florida, and this shield. You won't be able to find these anymore. Yeah, this is from a guy named Alan Walker who passed away last year.
Pick it up because it's actually it's.
I don't want to scratch your table.
The shield, you're good.
If I can get underneath
Shield's
this way.
Pretty. Shield's. I mean, dude, that thing is even like leather.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's actually heavy. Look at that. U.S. government property controlled number. What? Dude, you even added this to it?
No, that's the prop maker put that on there.
Who put this?
So it was a man named Alan Walker. He lived in, I want to say, Titusville, Florida, down by Cocoa, Florida.
Yeah.
And he made these. He's a prop maker. All he did was the shields. And so I had to go out and find, in my opinion,
Stark Industries, Captain Steve Rogers. That's freaking dope.
So the best prop makers from each thing, like I said, the helmet came from a completely different prop maker. That came from a different prop maker. The suit came from a different prop maker. And then the additions to this suit came from a different prop maker. So,
hey, Kendall, did you look at this?
Yeah, when you hold that thing, you can't not feel like Steve Rogers.
Yeah. Dude, that's so okay. So I'm sorry because I'm
you're good.
Yeah, dude, that's like real leather. And everything.
It is absolutely.
Dope. And so, okay, so, and then you're saying, so three designers?
Yes. So this was a designer. This was a designer. The undersuit was a designer, a company that made it to my specs, right? My measurements. And then this part and the shoulder bells are totally different prop
I'm
making.
going to ask you a rude question.
How much did I pay for it?
Yeah. You don't have to tell me the exact number.
Okay.
Roundabout.
I'm nearing about $3,000.
$3,000?
Yeah.
For a freak man. Dude,
this has been through this suit in general, this one right here has been through 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's so well made, it will last forever.
So I'll come to his defense on that. Where as a cosplayer, that's kind of in the mid range.
Yes, that's mid range. Especially if you can do some of the work yourself, like the weathering and things like that, you can save some money from, having other people do things for you.
That thing is cool.
But there's just certain things you'll never get, like a shield like that. That's, I wouldn't be spinning that. That's aluminum. I wouldn't be able to spin that, but I thought it was beautiful. So much so that actually I knew he was having, he actually passed away from complications from a heart attack. And he was in the hospital, and I saw somebody in a forum saying, I'm trying to sell this Alan Walker shield. I'm like, how much? So I bought that one too, so I have 2 of these now. But he's gone. They'll never be made again. So it's like there's so much sentimental value behind this too. And he did a lot for the community. So and the guy that made this, I mean, we're talking 500 just for the attachments here, about another 500, not the suit itself, just for like the star and this. So, but yeah, it's my first suit was rough, right? So I told you we moved here in 2021, and it wasn't long after we moved here that the wildfires happened. And where I live, I live just basically up the street, 231 from Highland Park, right? We hadn't started going. We hadn't had a home church yet. Let me put it that way. We were still visiting. We'd visited quite a few churches around here, and I saw on the news. Well, first of all, coming home one day, I just saw the plume of smoke right across 231 from us. We were so afraid that it was going to jump 231. The ashes. We were having, it was snowing in our subdivision. Ash all over the cars. And so we were a little nervous about coming from Illinois. I mean, we have tornadoes up there, but we don't have hurricanes and we don't have wildfires like that. So this was a new one for us. And but I saw on the news that they were taking the families that were displaced to Highland Park Baptist Church. We're talking families. I said, there's going to be kids there. So I've got to do something. So I had my old suit still, my first one that I had from 2018. I was like, let's go there. I'm going to put this on. Let's go there. Let's see if we can, take a little bit of the stress off the kids at least, and I'll just go there and hang out with them. So we didn't call anybody. We didn't give any heads up that we were coming, nothing like that. And we just rolled down to Highland Park Baptist Church. I'm dressed up as Captain America. I get out of the car and everybody's looking at me like, who is this guy? Well, I didn't know that at the same time I pulled up, they were doing a press conference and the governor was standing right there. Like I literally pulled up in the parking lot where the governor was and Patronus was and Chuck Purdue, all these guys were over there. And my wife's like, well, let's just walk over there. I'm like, okay. And, I'm walking up with a shield in my hand. Not this one. It was a different shield, too. So I got this one later also. Walk up with the shield in my hand. And then, all the deputies, everybody's looking at me like, who's this guy? Why is he walking up near the governor? Like, I'm sure they're probably thinking this guy is here to do something crazy. But nobody said anything negative. Nobody stopped me. I walked up to where everybody else was standing and stood there. And then at the end of it all, I got to meet the governor and got a picture with him with my family. So really cool, really cool. But I went into the church and they had a family in there and they had a foosball table, had some stuff in there. I'm like, so I just started playing foosball with the kids and just hanging out. And then they were like, well, we're going to be moving this. So they were talking about going to the Fairgrounds after that. Yeah. And the next day, I think it was the Sims retirement home. They had all of them at the Bay County Fairgrounds. So I had school that day to work, but I took my suit with me to school and my daughter goes to my school. I said, hey, let's see what we can do for these veterans that are, going to be at the fairgrounds because they're displaced also because of the fires. So we had a bunch of students, we had like all the grade levels, make cards for the veterans. And so my daughter and I dressed in Captain America and we delivered them to the fairgrounds and gave all the people there, cards from the school, from the students. And it was just, I was like, man, this is something that's it's so, and I'm glad my daughter gets to see it and be part of it. she's not embarrassed. I don't think she is embarrassed that her dad does this. She doesn't say she is if she is, but she's 12 years old, so she's going through that middle school phase now. You know, like where parents aren't as cool as they used to be when they were a little bit younger. They start to be less cool. So I'd like to think that she still thinks what I do is cool, if nothing else, just for the fact that I'm doing it for a lot of nonprofits, charities, and what I'm doing for them. You know,
I actually want to ask you about the nonprofits and charities that you work with. But before you do that, I did want to say something about those fires.
Yeah,
you know about it like pretty well.
About as much as I heard from people at the time.
So I had Jackie Wilkie on. I think she was my 3rd or 4th episode.
Okay.
Her and her husband Rick, they lost their home.
Okay.
In that fire. I mean, it burnt down to the ground because I think there were only like 3 total losses. Okay. There's lots of damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they lost their home. There was a state of emergency that was called in. The governor, had to bring in more first responders out of the county.
Yeah.
To be able to, this was a big deal. Thousands aid. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so, so the guy that started the fire, teens in his continuances.
Wow.
Like he got up into the teens and the continuances, and they just came to, like, I guess the only thing he's having to do now is pay a $14,000 fine.
Wow.
$14,000 fine on that many resources that were used throughout the state of Florida, and people lost their homes.
Yeah.
And so when we say, one of the things, obviously, being there for the kids after something like that, but man, dude, the parents, like Jackie and Rick, they lost everything. Yeah. She lost her wedding dress when she got married. She lost photos. Yeah. She lost baby clothes. They lost. Obviously, you didn't lose everything because you still got each other.
Right.
And, God is still there.
Yes.
But you lost things. And for, that right there, and this is, it's extremely, and I'm gonna make a little bit of a dig at some stuff. I'm not going to be specific on this, but there are pages on Facebook and there are shows on on social media that they're ambulance chasers, right? They chase after after so-called corruption in cities and counties and all of that. But there are families that lost their home and they never fucking covered it.
Yeah.
And so when you have stuff like that happening, and then what you're doing, you haven't been covered by any of this, and it's such a positive. We have so many positive things that's going on in our in our community, and we have things where our community need us as people,
right?
And no, everybody wants to. Dude, we live in such a dude. I swear to God, I believe. I'm putting my tinfoil hat on for a second, buddy. All right, but like I honestly believed, I believe that COVID destroyed a lot of good.
Yes.
Just because people they are so stuck in negative world.
Yes.
They don't ever come to the positive on anything.
Right.
I think what you're doing is freaking awesome.
I appreciate that.
Dude, I want to throw on a superhero suit and do it with you. That's freaking great.
So on top of, and we talk about the fires. So something else that I just started doing this year that I didn't know about until the fires happened. And I saw that, this was an opportunity. This was something I could do. So I'm part of the Bay County CERT team now as well, the Community Emergency Response Team. So it's literally folks in the community that work alongside Bay County Emergency Services in disaster. So the warming shelters, I worked at the warming shelters, some night shifts.
Oh, did you?
During those really cold temps that we had.
Did we actually have quite a few people that went to those
over
things?
100.
Really?
Over 100 one night, yeah. So I think it was anywhere between 50 and 100 plus people, depending on the nights that we had. And they were offering, they're getting dinner, warm place to sleep. And it wasn't always just homeless people. Maybe it was just people that didn't have heat at their house, or maybe it was families that were, maybe living out of a car. There was a lot of different stories there. But I think, for me, it's another volunteer opportunity. Obviously, I'm not dressed as Captain America when I do that, but it's another volunteer opportunity for the community that anybody in the community can do this.
Yeah.
And I know when there's a disaster, especially, and I wasn't here for Michael, so I don't want to speak on it. But anytime there's a disaster, the community people do want to come out and help. That's part of a community, is helping one another, helping your neighbor. So this is an opportunity where if there's a disaster and some people people didn't leave, they didn't evacuate. Okay, we may need bodies just to stand here at this house or at this street just to make sure, or hand out waters, right? River camps. I was up there when they had their water issue, handing out bottles of water, handing out cases of water to residents. That's what the CERT team does. So if anybody is interested in joining the CERT team, they can. And their next class will be, I think, sometime early summer. You go through a week-long course. You have to take a test at the end of it, just like anything. But you learn good first aid skills I'd already had from law enforcement, but good first aid skills and just disaster preparedness, just to be prepared with your family.
Get up with me after this because I want to put that out on our page when that's coming up.
Yeah, for sure.
And who runs that?
So our lead is Jennifer Wilburn, and she works with Bay County Emergency Services. Okay. So up there at the campus, the Gulf Coast campus.
Okay. Yeah, I want to know about that because that's something that we can put out to make sure that people are aware of like those types of things.
Yeah.
Again, like I think it's cool. Like you took skills that you had like from art and then law enforcement, and you put it into good use on how to give back to the community. Yep. So a lot of people think that like helping out in the community is going down to the soup kitchen and serving soup. But sometimes you have like, not saying that that's not something you could do. That's something that you should do.
Right.
But find something that you're good at and use it.
Yeah. Well, we all have gifts, right? We all have gifts. Yeah. And if I feel like if I was just not doing it just because I did, listen, there's a reason why it's in my heart to do it. There's a reason why I have the gifts I do to do it. And, I'm not a camera shy person. Yeah. I don't mind being on TV. I don't mind that stuff. Some people can't do it. Some people can't stand up in a room full of people and talk. That's never been a problem for me. So I have a gift and I'm not afraid to use it. And because the gift is benefiting the community, I couldn't ask for anything more. Yeah. I couldn't ask for anything more. So I'm gonna do as much as I can with what I have, right, to leave the world better than it was when I got here, right? So that's the biggest thing. Like, if I can do anything positive, and if it's just Bay County, I called myself Bay County captain because, I could have been Panama City captain. I could have been, but I feel like I can do more than just a city. I feel like I can probably even do more than just a county. And I'm absolutely willing to go to neighboring counties if there's something that happens that they're like, man, it would be really cool if we had somebody out here just for the kids to like maybe help them out. Absolutely. Let me know.
No, I think it's great. Let's talk a little bit about the nonprofit. So I know you've worked with United Way. Who else?
So let's see. United Way. I do stuff with Destination Panama City. So I'll do their 4th of July event, which, they benefit all the nonprofits in the area. Rooms with a Purpose. And they do really cool stuff too. They do like themed rooms. So if they do like a superhero room for like a little boy that maybe have a terminal illness or something, I'll show up and help with that. And Sherry's awesome, the one that runs it. I told her, anytime you need me, I'll be there. Even if it's not a themed room for Captain America or a superhero, and you just want me to be there, I'll be there. So I did the Wrestling Against Cancer, which they were at Bay High. That's where that event was actually at, or Bay Haven. They were at Bay Haven. And
that was like a week ago.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago. Yep. Which they had the largest turnout they've ever had there, which was really awesome. Diamond Dallas Page showed up. If you know much about wrestling, if you know from old school wrestling, Diamond Dallas Page he just moved to Panama City Beach, actually. He told everybody there that night. So really cool that DDP is in the area. So I was a little starstruck. I like Diamond Dallas Page. He has a whole Diamond Dallas Page yoga thing that's really, really kind of cool. But so let's see, who else? I know there's a bunch more I'm going to forget about. Cops and kids, obviously. Anything that has to do with police officers and giving back to the community with children, of course, I'm down for. I went out to the Panama City, they do like a bike giveaway, and they do like a bikes course with the kids and stuff like that, a safety course. And I went out there, and I mean, awesome. Just nobody has ever said, we don't want Captain America here. Yeah. Nobody's ever said that. They're like, yes, come on in, help us out. I know there's more. I should have brought my list of all the ones I've worked for, or done work with. But now it's like, okay, how can I help even just individuals, right? So this thing with House of Henry and Rainey, House of Henry is running this 100%. I'm helping them, right? And I'm helping by advertising. I'm helping by letting people know. But they found out about it because of what I posted about her. Like, what can we do to help this little girl? Like, I'm bound and determined to raise money for her, and they were the first ones to reach out to me. I'm like, that is awesome. So Chandra over at House Henry, love her, and it's one of my favorite places to eat downtown anyway. So I like the House Henry.
Yeah.
So I'll go there anyway. So
I think what's his name? Beard. Mr. Beard used to own the place.
Yeah, they haven't owned it long. I know that, like maybe a year.
Yeah,
maybe?
I think it was bought out. I don't know who owns it now.
Yeah.
I know Bobby Beard owned it, and then he sold it, I think. I don't know much about it, but they've got good. I mean, I've had their fish and chips and some stuff there, and of course, like any Irish pub. I mean, the fact that we're going to have McGuire's coming,
Yes, my
which
goodness.
I'm kind of concerned for the longevity of House of Henry.
Yeah.
But man, dude, I think it being downtown, I don't think the beach is really going to affect it much.
Downtown's got its own following.
It does,
It's
yep.
got its own vibe too. It's just, I like the beach. I don't like driving over to the beach.
Yeah.
But I like the beach. But you're right. Like,
I got to drive to the beach every day because I work on the Navy base.
Yeah.
It's not so bad there, but traffic here is so bad.
It is.
Dude.
It's so crazy.
So you said you live out there near Cato.
yeah.
So that's being in Lynn Haven, I think it's about in the morning time, 7:30.
Yeah.
Getting out of my neighborhood
That's
to get to
why, yeah.
work. It's like a 45-minute drive to get to the base, and it's only 12 miles away.
Yeah. That's why I leave at 5:30.
It's a little.
At 5:30, I can actually get somewhere if I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any other big events that are coming up? And
So I'm going to be on the day before the House of Henry event on the 13th. I'll be out at the Chamber of Commerce. They're doing like some T-Rex dinosaur race thing. I think they do it every year.
Yeah.
So my wife has gone through the Leadership Bay this class, and she's going to be, I think, one of the dinosaurs running in it. So myself and another cosplayer are going to be out there for that.
How often do you collaborate with other cosplayers?
I don't collaborate with a lot of them, but there are a handful that I do. So I'm kind of like,
I mean, is this a common thing? What you do, like in other, like with people that do cosplay that kind of get involved?
There are organizations that do this. There are cosplay organizations that do specifically functions like there's like cosplay for a cause and things like that are on a bigger, like there's a Northwest Florida one that covers like Pensacola, Destin, and even our area.
I would imagine that they probably charge.
I don't think they charge specifically, but they do go to raise money for causes. Awesome. They raise money for causes. So they're trying to bring money in, but it goes to a nonprofit or it goes to something that they're raising money for. Yeah. Whereas I don't do any of that. I just do appearances. Yeah. I go out in the community. So like every 9/11, I carry a flag over the Hathaway Bridge.
You're the guy that does that?
That's
somebody just said something about that this past.
Yes. So I walked in Captain America. I take the flag and I walk over the Hathaway Bridge.
I think somebody had said something to me about that.
So yeah, I have my own things that I do for the reasons that I do them for. Like I always walk in the Veterans Day Parade. I'll walk in the 4th of July Parade, a Lynn Haven 4th of July Parade. I've done that the last 2 or 3 years now. But there's events that I will go to because I want to do those events for whatever reason. And it's not, I'll just put out, hey, Bay County Captain's going to walk the Hathaway Bridge. If you want to join me, we're doing it as a walk to remember. That's what I call it, the walk to remember. And again, that's the reason why I joined law enforcement in the first place, was because of what happened and me wanting to give back to the community in a really, really, I feel like our country, really came together during that time. Right after that happened, I feel like there was a really strong bond. Everybody was just like, we were just under attack, and this has never, in most people's lifetime, had never happened.
Well, everybody was affected by it in some way.
Yes.
It was something that, it was like a camaraderie. Everybody had something in common.
Yes.
Because if you were an American, you were attacked.
Right.
So I think there was that aspect of it that really brought people. Yeah. And then it is a sad thing, though, if you look at it, because I think that might be what you were trying to say. Is like, it seems like in our nation, we only come together when there's something negative that happens.
Right.
It's the same thing that happens with a lot of people with their faith with God. It's like you only go and you only kneel and you only pray when something
hardships.
when something is bad.
Yeah.
But, when things are going good, you're not necessarily looking up,
Right.
to
That's right.
to ask for help because you don't feel like you need it.
Yep.
I have my own personal relationship with God, and it's a personal one, so I don't really talk about it much.
Yeah.
But I do think that that was one of the aspects of that after 9/11 too, because the attendance in churches. I remember the Sunday after 9/11. We were going to Gulf Beach Baptist Church out here, and my dad couldn't find a parking spot.
Right.
But then it was like Sundays before that.
Yeah.
And then it dwindled after like a year.
Yeah.
And it was like, you come together and you do that. But it's almost like I don't think you can really change the culture or the mentality of the country to start just feeling good about being an American again and feeling positive about being alive.
Right.
A lot of people take life for granted.
Absolutely.
You wake up every single day and you're able to breathe air into your lungs and, walk out the door, get in your vehicle and drive to work. People complain about it, but it's like, dude, that is a big deal.
It is.
And the majority of the people that sit there and profit, take that type of lifestyle for granted every day, never really think about what it takes to keep you doing that. And it takes a 17 to 45-year-old with a gun to make sure that you're able to do that every day. And then on top of that, chances are you probably don't even like the individual that's doing that for you.
Right.
you take that for granted
that's
too.
True.
So,
That's true.
and a lot of people take the law enforcement side for granted as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think? What do you think would be a good way to get people to actually realize that type of thing? Is it the positive impact that you think you play on the community that brings that to light?
I know deep down I have my reasons that I do this, and I know people on the outside don't. You're not going to understand. You just see a guy dressed up as Captain America. I'm going to be 47 years old this year, and I'm not a young guy that's just out here. I like to dress up to this. There's a reason I'm doing this. I do it because I have the passion to do it, and I feel like Captain America is just a symbol, right? It's not even a person. It's not me. It's the symbol, right? And if me just going out and being in the community can bring people together, right? Because I shouldn't say everybody likes Captain America, but a lot of people like Captain America. He stands for something positive. I feel like that's a small thing that I can do. But I think, to get the entire community, to get the country on board with doing things positive like this, I think it's an individual process. I think individually we have to make those decisions that if we don't like the way the world's going, we can do something about it.
And change it.
We can change it. And even though I'm one individual, I can do as much as I can do, which, I wish I could do more. I really do. If there's an avenue, if there's a door that opens up I'm gonna take it.
Well, you're changing lives.
Yeah.
And when I say that, and I think there is a little bit of the aspect of when you put on the suit, there might be a little bit of people, make jokes or whatever, but you are changing children's lives because something like the fire, something like the cold shelter.
Yeah.
Kids, when they're going through this, they're having to deal. Parents are arguing.
Right.
Parents are devastated. They don't really have any positive things that are going on. And then, lo and behold, Captain America walks in through the door, and he's like, "Yo, man, let's go play foosball." And it's like that right there. I mean, you're taking the burden off of parents by doing this.
Yes.
And I know, especially with cancer stuff. Is this the first cancer thing that you've done?
For me to do something for an individual, now I've done things for organizations like the Wrestle Against Cancer and the Rooms with a Purpose. Those are organizations. But for an actual individual, yes, this is the first time.
Have you hooked up with any of the Shriners or Masonic lodges at all to go do the burn victim stuff?
I have not.
So they travel back and forth to the burn hospitals, kids that have been severely burned, And then I think cancer, they do cancer stuff as well.
Okay.
I'll get you some contacts
Yeah,
before you
absolutely.
leave. That way, if you know, I don't know if you want to travel with them, but they get in vans, and I mean they go and go visit these kids. I mean, and having a superhero to kind of go in and make their day. I think it'd be cool.
That'd be awesome.
Because I want to help you reach as many people as possible because I know negativity is a cancer in our country, in our community.
You know, and you talked about earlier with the followers on social media, right? So, and it's figuring out social media and figuring out the algorithms and all that stuff is interesting, but you'll get 1 million followers on some of the most negative topics or negative, people out there. But when you are trying to do something positive, it feels like,
it's heartbreaking.
It's tough. Not as many people want to follow the good, but they want to see the bad things happen on video. They want to see those negative interactions with law enforcement. They want to see fights at schools. They want to see things like that people are posting. And that's part of the problem. It's
humiliation
part of the problem.
runs the nation. Like anything that's humiliating to an individual or to a specific city, county even, people, man, they jump on this. It's so weird because you're 100% right. You'll see something come up on Instagram and it'll be a cop running outside of a burning building holding a child and her cat.
Right.
And you'll look at the views and it's like, 3,500 views.
Yeah.
And then you look over and then it's like, 26,000 views on, the corrupt mayor of a city, and it's like, why do people stay so focused on this rather than that, and why, but then in the same breath, there'll be a freaking video that comes out of a cop pepper spraying somebody in the face because they won't resist. That'll have 1 million views. Right. But the cop over here, kick flipping a skateboard, helping out in the community will get 100 views.
Yep. And that's that. I try to do my best to share the ones that I see. Well, this is awesome. Like this guy's making a difference. This guy's doing it right. And listen,
but you've gone up a lot in followers.
And I'm not just recently. I have, and I'm like I said, I'm just starting to gain some traction. Yeah. But I'm not opposed to exposing injustice. Yeah, that's one thing about me. Listen, I was a police officer, and I worked with other police officers. And you talked about some people earlier on, maybe they have a chip on their shoulder, right? There are those police officers out there. Nobody's perfect, and no profession is perfect.
That's not the entire department.
No profession is perfect. You will find that in any profession. That person is there, but that person is the small majority where, you don't go into law enforcement because you want to just arrest people. You have to, and you don't go to teaching because, you like the subject. You go to teaching because you want to teach children, because you want to make an impact.
That and the huge paycheck. You guys get paid
just like law enforcement, right? Just like law enforcement. It's like some of the most deserving, right? But yeah, it's like you go into it because you have a passion for doing that. You have a passion for helping children. You have a passion for helping the community. My favorite part of being an officer, I did enjoy listening to 3 years on the task force because that was 3 years of adrenaline constantly. But I had a call. I took a call. So my department, we didn't have a full-time fire department. We had volunteer fire department. So we were the first responders to every scene. Didn't matter what it was. The fire department was going to show up after us. So EMTs are probably going to show up after us. So, giving CPR, doing all those type of medical emergencies, people falling in the shower, elderly people falling and just doing lift assists. Did lots of lift assists. A lady called the police because she didn't know how to change her light bulb. Okay. I'll go over there and I'll change your light bulb.
Like service to the community.
That's it. And unfortunately, a lot of that, serving the community has been lost. And I'm not saying with the departments. I'm saying with the community and the culture. They're not seeing. You don't see the videos of the officer that's doing that. That's not the one you're going to get. Because I'm not going lights and sirens to a call like that. I'm pulling up slow to a house, knocking on the door, going in, change the light bulb, and then I'm 10-8. I'm back in service. It's when you go, oh, here comes the lights and sirens. Let's get the video cameras out. Let's start filming what's going on. Okay, but that's that's not the part of the job that is the majority of the job. The majority of the job is working with the community.
Do you think that TV shows, I mean, obviously the news, but do you think like TV shows also, and then of course social media, I mean, you think that stuff plays a huge role in how people look at law enforcement as well?
Yeah, and I, especially while I was in law enforcement, I was never a fan of watching the like Blue Bloods or any of those shows that were out there because you watch and you're like, that's not real.
It's
that's
a
not
misrepresentation.
That's not how it
of what y'all
happens.
do,
It doesn't happen like that. In the judicial system, that's not how it happens. What they're showing on TV versus what actually happens in court.
But people believe that.
People believe it. So there is a little bit of a misrepresentation when it comes to that. But it's TV and it's movies and just like watching the Avengers or Captain America, it's not real.
Yeah.
It's Hollywood or whoever's representation of a comic book. But if people watch a movie and they think this is how police are, this is how things are, that's a skewed.
I mean, dude, being in the military, I mean, there were guys. We used to make the joke all the time, like, "Oh, I wish I would have never watched Black Hawk Down." Or,
Right,
because the military isn't
yes,
like this, you know.
yes.
And but I mean, that's a real thing. People have it in their minds. They watch these TV shows, they watch social media, they watch the news, and then that's what portion they see of who is out in the community, who is helping people, and then that's how you get these freaking street attorneys that think that they know more about the law than the person that handles it every single day.
Right.
It's our country. Technology has definitely screwed it up, but and maybe that's the reason why we don't see people getting as passionate about helping out in the community too. I think social media plays a big. Social media in general, TV shows, movies. People don't have lost a passion for humanity. You really, unless there's another big catastrophic event.
Yeah, well, I feel like, if we jump to COVID, I feel like that did the opposite. It did the opposite. It did more bad, just to the mental health of society.
Our suicide rate jumped up.
Well, you're isolating
by a
people.
lot.
We're social animals, right? So
Yeah.
you can't say you can't be near these people. You can't go to Thanksgiving with your family because of the chance of spreading something. You
can't go to church, can't worship,
can't go to church, can't go anywhere, can't go to work. For people to have to isolate themselves, and social media was really all we had to communicate with each other. And then I think part of that time, social media has just exploded also even more because we couldn't be face to face with people.
Also, it turns people into what do they call them? Influencers. So they're popular now.
Yes, yeah, you get paid.
So the average person now has their 15 minutes or 15 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
So I mean, social media is the direct it's the direct example of like getting what you want right now. What do they call it? It's part of that the factor of instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's instant gratification.
Yeah.
You post a picture. Oh, I got 20 likes in an hour.
Right.
Oh, I got to post another one. Well,
Right.
why did I only get 10 likes on this one? Oh, I got to post another one. And then, you get stuck on that. And then people did that. And then all through COVID, and then they came out of it popular, but it's an unrealistic expectation of life.
Right.
Like it really is.
Yeah.
So we hit on all that. I didn't really have any more questions for you. I know Kendall had some questions for you as far as the cosplay thing because he's big on cosplay. So we're getting more off the community side of things and on to costume
let's talk about
and stuff like that.
For sure.
And the artistic side, man, that's cool, man. I think that's awesome.
And I'm one of those guys that's like OCD about things. So when we talk about the details and things like that, I kind of gravitate towards Captain America because growing up, I was a late bloomer. Like I was the smallest kid in school. I was probably 5 foot tall when I graduated from high school still.
Yeah.
I grew 6 inches my first year in college, put on weight. Now I did wrestle in middle school, and then in high school, that's when I started taking martial arts. But I was the kid that was picked on.
I wanted to ask you about that, by the way.
What's that?
you said that your gym in Illinois was martial art. What martial arts?
So my martial arts experience is very vast. It's almost as vast as my careers have been. I started taking Shonin karate after wrestling in middle school, and from karate did the tournament thing. Then I started taking Brazilian capoeira, which is like dance fighting, flipping, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like that's what like parkour people do now, right? Like back then we didn't have parkour. We didn't have the internet yet. So did Brazilian capoeira, and only because I met a guy from Brazil that was passing through and started teaching. I'm like, well, this is really cool. Then I've done, I've trained with some guys. I'm not going to say that I've trained extensively in BJJ, but I've trained with guys that do BJJ, whether it was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or the Machados, which are the cousins, right? Yeah. But I took a lot of those classes also with law enforcement because they were offered and it was free training. So I ended up getting defensive tactics instructor certified in law enforcement. So I was teaching, I've taught the U.S. Marshals in Del Rio, Texas. I've taught them on the border of Mexico. They flew me down there to teach. But a lot of my focus was on an art in Japan called Budo Taijutsu. And it was an ancient battlefield art, samurai stuff. And actually in 2018, I went to Japan and trained with some of the top guys in it. So ancient Japanese battleground combat. That was it.
We need to talk offline.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's pretty cool.
So that's my highest rank. I have a 10th dan in that.
Yeah, so I'm into martial arts, a couple different styles, but we'll talk later about that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Kendall, man.
So I think the first one, probably for the any younger viewer, would be, what's your favorite Captain America movie? Civil War, really?
Yes.
Civil War.
No, without a doubt. Civil War is my favorite Captain America
Do you want to
movie.
hear something crazy? I've only seen Captain America and then I've seen all the Avengers. I've never
Avenger?
I've never watched them in order, and I've never watched all of them.
Okay, so my two favorite movies in the Marvel universe are obviously Endgame and then Captain America Civil War. There is a lot more going on in those movies than just fighting. Like some of the quotes and some of the things that they say in those movies are really, it's talking to the society. It's not just talking to, let's make a good movie, let's make a good action movie. But Civil War, to me, you have the Avengers have been together, and now all of a sudden there's a split, there's a divide in the Avengers. You have Tony Stark, Iron Man, and his group, and you have Steve Rogers, Captain America, and his group. And what divides them, the reasons they can't come to an agreement, I feel like there's such a representation of our country in that movie.
So I don't know anything about
Captain
it. So
America Civil War, you've got to watch it.
Okay,
You've gotta watch
I'll go and watch it then instead of asking.
Yeah, it's actually deep, and I can watch that movie over and over again. Now, I liked Captain America: Winter Soldier also. That's like a second on my list of Captain America movies. Winter Soldier is very action packed. It has a good storyline between him and Bucky, the Winter Soldier, who we'll eventually get to see again on screen in the Thunderbolts. But Civil War is definitely my favorite, and then Endgame is right there with it also.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm surprised you went with like the CIA thriller.
With
Winter Soldier instead of the first one, because that's
the first Avenger.
Yeah, I just like the World War II.
Yeah,
and then obviously like the boot camp stuff where you said just the character and fortitude is present even if the body's not there.
Right. No, there's definitely, and I kind of feel like this latest Captain America movie, now with Sam Wilson being Captain America, is very much like Captain America, the first Avenger. And I feel like if they give Sam Wilson 2 more movies, they're going to be equally as successful as when Steve Rogers was Captain America. I think they're just building off of those. But like I said, what's going on in the movie, to watch it for more than just an action movie or a comic book movie, that's why the Civil War really caught my attention. So I'm
gonna watch it tonight.
That's a good one.
And then I think you kind of hinted on it earlier talking to Ron, but it sounds like you really weren't a cosplayer but got into it for the cause.
That's it.
And it's kind of what made you think of that? Because normally, I was a cosplayer first, and then was happy to see that those organizations were out there and at cons recruiting, like, hey, we're going to go do a little there's an event. We're just going to show up, hang out. You know, if there's younger people there, just, you know, make them happy that they can see their favorite character.
Yeah, so I actually didn't even go to my first comic book convention. Now, growing up, I have comic books. I have comic books from still when I was a kid, but I actually had never gone to. I went to St. Louis Wizard World and then Chicago Comic Cons while I was up there, and I haven't even gone to any of the real big ones down here at all. Like Pensacon, I haven't been to. I haven't been to MegaCon or Dragon Con in Georgia. I haven't been to that one. I've been told that those are really awesome.
Dragon Con's a Halloween party.
Is
pretty
it?
much, yeah.
Okay. So I've been told, you need to check those out. But I actually started, well, shoot, I would have had to have been in my late 30s before I even made my first costume. Now, my first costume, I actually handmade the entire thing, and it was Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. He was my favorite character in the video game. You know, growing up, like in high school, like we were playing Mortal Kombat, and I was like, Sub-Zero, he's my guy. So I did that one. Then my daughter and I, when she was, oh my gosh, was she 4 years old probably? I did Wolverine, and she was X-23, so she was Laura. So I made her claws and her stuff, and we went to Chicago Comic Con as Wolverine and Laura. And then after that, I just kind of I had the Captain America suit, but I've never been to a Comic Con except for the little thing they had in town yesterday, the mini con. Have never been to a Comic Con as Captain America. And it's the one that I've spent the most money on, the one that I've spent the most time detailing. Because for me, Captain America is not about cosplay. Captain America it's for the community. It's for
The mission.
the mission. Absolutely. It's the mission. It's not, I'm dressing up to just go stand around other people that are dressed up in costume. That's not what it's about. So now it's like, I'm going to make appearances, but my goal still is working with the charities, the nonprofits, things like that. But I absolutely applaud all those that take the time, that have the heart for that. The kids, this is a great outlet for kids that may not be into sports, may not be into something. But growing up as a kid, I was doing martial arts and I was playing sports, but I wasn't doing this. I don't even think cosplay was a thing when I was a kid, though. I don't think it was. And if it was, I don't remember. I remember collecting comic books, but I don't remember there being cosplay. But I think now this is something that kids can look forward to. And, there's a lot of positive characters in cosplay that, if they feel like putting that costume on helps them to, maybe they're a quiet kid and maybe they come out of their shell when they put a costume on. They're a totally different person, right? So if it allows them that social interaction because they get to be somebody else for that day or that 2 days of a convention, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then your story with obviously the lockdowns is when you kind of put on the mantle, right? Did you see that a lot? I mean, so I was here for Michael, and then because of the lockdown stuff, had to move out to Colorado.
Right.
So I heard different stories about that, but I heard people, I mean, they were, like you said, as a business owner, they were hit, and so they were looking for any kind of hustle.
Yeah.
A lot of them were putting on a costume, and a kid's birthday party is now only their immediate family, but they got to FaceTime someone that was dressed as Ella or their favorite Disney princess.
Yeah.
Whoever.
Well, yeah, I did that. I didn't charge anything for it though. So I ended up when my business was closed, I ended up going to a warehouse and driving a forklift midnights just to make money while my business was closed. And then during the day, I'd go run a neighborhood, or I would stop by a birthday party, but I never charged anything for it. I still just did it out of the goodness of my heart, right? Because that's what I wanted to do. It wasn't about making money. I can make money. I can go do a lot of different things. The thought had crossed my mind, do I go back to the police department now? But I felt like, no, we're going to get through this. COVID's not going to last forever. This shutdown is not going to last forever. And I'm going to get my gym back up and running. We're going to come back stronger. And the name of my gym was Shinobi Fitness. And Shinobi translates to persevering and enduring. So I'm like, this is a perfect example of perseverance, not giving up. The doors are closed, but everything was still there. And months later, when we opened back up, the people came back, and we persevered for another good year before I sold the business, and then we moved down here. So,
have you thought about opening up one of those here?
Yes, yes, and yes.
I want to say that
Yes.
we've kind of talked about this because it's like that would be something that I would definitely sign my kids up for.
I've had a lot of people ask me
Because my daughter's in gymnastics now.
Right.
And she's all into flips, cartwheels,
Yep.
and all of that. My son, he's trying to My son's trying.
Yeah, right.
He's and he's about to start jujitsu because he's at that age. But yeah, I think something like that would do great.
Yeah, so I've talked to a lot of different people, and I have recently checked out a couple buildings. The specs almost have to be perfect, right?
What is the liability like?
Like any other gym, like a martial arts gym, or gym, like a gym plus martial arts. We went through an insurance broker in Illinois. That it seemed like every year we were having to switch companies because they would change something in their verbiage, and it was like, oh, it didn't fall under this now. So because they don't have a specific obstacle course, but there's a lot of CrossFit that use the same type of thing because they're climbing ropes or they're climbing cargo nets or things like that. So it all falls under that same gym mentality. They've signed a waiver, come in and do whatever.
Yeah. When you had your gym though, were injuries minimal?
I would say the worst injuries we had were from 40-year-old men, and I was in that category.
Yeah.
Coming in and feeling like they needed to go hard. And I'm like, guys, this is something that technique is way more than, you're not going to force this to work. Takes time. So I had a few Achilles tendons rupture. Oh. You know, I've felt my share of nothing behind their ankle and knowing that it's rolled up into their calf because they stepped on the wall the wrong way. Because we run in Ninja Warrior, you know, they have to work the wall. You run up the wall, and they hit it wrong and snap. And up their calf, the tendon goes. And so we've had a few of those, but you know,
you can
that's
hear it. You can hear those things.
Oh yeah,
snap.
It pops. Oh yeah.
I've heard somebody's Achilles pop before, and I've seen some injuries that are pretty bad just from like, you know, I'm a big rucking guy.
Yeah,
I ruck a lot. Mm-hmm. I run a lot. I was actually going to ask you that earlier. You run like regularly now?
Well, I used to. So the $1 Million Mile, after I did that show, was probably, so I got my mile down to 4.5 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay. So that's what I was going to ask you earlier.
I
was
40.
Golly, 4.5 minutes at 40?
And 4 knee surgeries in.
So I ran a 5:35 back in the beginning of December.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was going to ask
you. I couldn't run a
like,
7-minute mile right now, probably.
Really?
So I've had 4 knee surgeries. My third one was a month before I did American Ninja Warrior. My fourth one was shortly after I did American Ninja Warrior. And so I have 0 cartilage in my left knee. I've had for a long time 0 cartilage in that knee. They've had to, it's the point now because impact sports are really bad for my knees because there's nothing to cushion that. So I'm breaking off little by little bone inside there. It needs to be replaced. But the doctors now are like, you probably should wait until you're a little older because they have a shelf life of 15 years. So if we replace your knee now, you're going to need to replace it again, and then probably again before, you know, God, hopefully I live that long. But they don't want to do the surgery. The last surgeon I looked at, he's like, no. He goes, you know what the problem is? I said, yeah. He goes, well, here's your x-rays. We can see it from the x-rays that the bone, you know, normally it's like you're getting MRIs, but the x-rays actually show because the bone is being just destroyed in there. So if I run, and I can still run, like I can do sprints, like I can sprint, but if I do a long run now, the next day I probably won't be able to walk. My knee will be so swollen, it'll just be, it's horrible.
Yeah, I had a bad motorcycle wreck back in 2021. I had a Ducati Panigale V4.
Yeah.
It was a great bike, fast, quick bike. And so I was coming around the corner there at Bay Haven. I had this car that was just riding me very, very.
Of course.
And it was it was an accident. I didn't lose control of the bike. The tire, my back tire gripped the curb.
Oh, yeah.
And that bike was only like 400 pounds.
Right.
I mean, you could pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sent me flying, and I was up on the sidewalk. I ended up like rolling out or whatever. And so my knee, there's a manhole cover that was near the sidewalk there by Bay Haven. Mm-hmm. You know how like those bolts stick up?
Oh, yeah. That
bolt went through my knee.
Oh.
When I rolled, and I didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah.
Dude, I have a badass scar on my knee. It was like a perfect circle where so when I got up, I pulled it out of the man because I was on top of the manhole cover, and the only thing I could feel was my freaking collarbone.
Yeah.
And I thought I popped my shoulder out of place because I do jujitsu and I roll around all the time. I've had this injury a couple of times now. So I was like, oh, I got to find a wall and just snap it back in. But when I was like picking myself up and not being able to use this side, I remember like looking, I was like, oh, my knee. And I looked down and I was like pulling it out of the thing. And I was like, this is going to bleed like a bitch. Like, this is going to be bad. And I was bleeding all over the place. And I ended up on that Ducati, you know, there's like a safety. So you can't just crank it up after you drop it. You know, you had to put in a code and it had a security system on it. And there was, because it happened at night, you couldn't see.
Right.
And so I had to like push it down into the light. I'm sitting here pushing my bike, trying to get, you know, and the person that ran me off the road, they just kept going. Like it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they didn't touch me.
Right.
So they didn't hit me. So it couldn't have been like a, but anyway, I ended up pushing this thing down and then I ended up, finally being able to crank it up. I rode it home, walked in my house, started doing my jacket. My wife was like, just call my dad. He needs to come and get me, take me to the hospital because I'm pretty jacked up and I don't know what's going on internally because I've lost a really good friend of mine on a motorcycle where he had a wreck. He thought everything was okay. And then they found him the next day and he was dead because his brain was bleeding. Right. He didn't even know it. And he was wearing a helmet and everything. So, I mean, sometimes so I just wanted to get checked out. Yeah. So I ended up undoing my jacket when my wife was on the phone with my dad, and I pulled back the jacket, and there was just like blood, and my collarbone had protruding through the skin, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Compound fracture. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm cold.
Yeah.
I think my body's in shock. But the knee part, when the doctor came in and was like looking at my knee or whatever, she's like, oh, you have pretty healthy knees or whatever.
Do you need ligament damage on that hole?
No, dude. No? It went straight in. Yeah. I don't, like the doctor said it is
a miracle
that like I didn't have any extra damage. Like, no, I mean, obviously I was limping for a while, but there was no bad.
Wow.
But I mean, it was very, very close. And she told me like how it was close to like, basically tearing all of this other stuff.
For sure.
And so I was like, oh, but, she was like, I told her, I was like, yeah, I pushed my bike. She's like, you got up and walked on this? Like, she thought like an ambulance had brought me there. Yeah. And I was like, no, I got up and I walked like...
Jeez. Yeah.
Right. They didn't want to believe that, but no, so injuries. Oof,
injuries are rough.
No way. But yeah, my mile time went down. Yeah. And then of course I had multiple surgeries after that. Right. And then I've never been the same physically after that. My ruck times are horrible and run times.
I do what I can. I exercise religiously, probably 6 days a week. Sundays I take off. But I have a good home gym. I'm not a go to the gym and be around a bunch of people type person. I've turned my stereo up loud in my gym in my garage and I just get after it. So I like pull-ups, I like calisthenics, I like a lot of body weight exercises. But I do bench press, I do squats. Even though my knees kill me, I do squats. I just don't do a whole lot of reps, so it's not a lot of wear and tear on them. But you know, I come from the old school of lifting free weights. You know, I'm not a machine person, so free weights and calisthenics. That's it.
We're hosting a 12-mile ruck on D-Day.
Okay.
And I'm trying to make it a bigger event than what it's been in the past because normally it's just a couple of my buddies and we go out and we throw a ruck on them.
Right.
So I'm trying to get as many people involved with that. But if you're up for doing something like that, you don't have to do like heavy weight. But I think if you're
That's
interested,
cool.
I might have to
do it like this.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
It'd be dope. Yeah, it'd be cool.
I'll carry the shield instead of the ruck.
Just run and encourage people while they're doing it. Woo!
Yeah. That sounds like a good
it'd
idea.
be cool. Yeah, Kendall, do you have anything else, man?
Yeah, I have this one here. I wrote a note, kind of keep my thoughts on track.
Yeah, I probably should have done that. I should
Yeah.
have wrote down notes. So
What's so funny about doing a podcast is everybody tries to be as professional as possible, and they try to make this. And so, like everybody's like, "Oh, you interviewed this person. You interviewed." I was like, "I don't interview anybody.
Yeah.
I have conversations with
Right.
people because I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and be like, so, and ask you everything that the media asks you and gives you that
Right.
5 seconds of
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
Like, I want to know who's behind whatever somebody's doing.
Yeah.
I want to know about all the. And I want to be part of the conversation. I want to talk. I don't
Right.
just want to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you the same thing over and over and
Yeah,
over again.
yeah.
I mean, that's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I wrote this one down because I think it's kind of an important one, and I kind of saw it when I moved because I had moved in what was that the late 2022.
Okay.
And so really it's just what lockdown was like for you there, where you're at, because a lot of us here in the community
Didn't experience that.
didn't experience it, but it's you got everything from the news and thought it was overblown, or it becomes a movie, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of, it's not a thing. But when you put a face to it and they're like, no, this was a thing. I mean, I got that a lot, and
Yeah.
that was kind of my icebreaker, because I didn't know anyone in Colorado. Going out was like, hey, I just moved here from Florida. What was lockdown like? And I'll get these I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, it probably what you saw on the news and more. I know my daughter wasn't in school for quite a while and had to go to virtual learning. And she came here midway through her 4th grade year. So that would have been like, shoot, we were going through COVID. It seemed like forever, but I feel like the kids suffered the most. And then when they went back to school, they all had to wear masks. Now we're talking little kids, like 1st graders, 2nd graders, and you're requiring them to wear a mask in class. I feel like, that's hard to do. It's hard for me to get in gym class to get the kids just to sit still, right? Can you just give me 1 second so I can explain what we're doing, and then you guys can go crazy, right? But I think the mask thing was tough. And now listen, when we were able to open up as a gym, my members had to have masks on. There were stories. Now, I never had it happen to me, but there were stories of law enforcement going to gyms and making sure they're doing things like they were supposed to, or if they weren't, they were shutting them down. Like you're not abiding by these new rules, these new laws, so you can't do it. So what we did, like I told you, I watched the news every day to find out what the new mandates were. Okay, now it's 6 feet. Now it's masks. Now you were only allowed to have so many people in a square footage, right? So I can allow maybe 25% of my members to come back, but not everybody. Okay, and then like as the days went on, you were allowed to have more and more and more and more, and then finally all of a sudden we're good. Now I still had members that came in wearing masks even after the all clear was kind of given, but it was still one of those deals where we were having to do thermometer checks to everybody that came in to make sure they didn't have a fever. Our drinking fountains had to be turned off because they couldn't use drinking fountains. They had to bring their own bottle of water. They had to use hand sanitizer after doing every obstacle. After every obstacle, I had to wipe down everything. It was the most sterile a gym has probably ever been, but it was tough to be a gym owner and literally cleaning behind each member, and saying, you're gonna have to bring your water bottle in. Please use the hand sanitizer since you've just touched this. It was stressful. Even being open was stressful. Like, being closed was stressful because obviously we can't run our gym, but being open under those mandates was tough also.
if you think about the ridiculous,
Well, real quick there, 'cause
Yeah.
I want to put it into perspective for the viewers, because obviously, we'd seen it on the news, and people kind of rebelled against it, but I want to put it into perspective for them of, you had a we, the Florida people, had a culture that allowed us to kind of thumb our nose and do whatever.
Right.
To where you were at, it was kind of you were able to do it as, I'm trying to do the right thing as a business owner.
Yes.
And keep people safe with the knowledge we had. And you said that, hey, there were some places, probably in Chicago where people were cracking heads a little more.
I'm sure. And there were restaurants that also were doing the same thing, because restaurants were trying to be open, whether they were trying to move to outdoor seating, but still be able to maintain being open. So, restaurants that were trying to get away with doing things that weren't allowed were being shut down. So it wasn't just gyms, but restaurants also, obviously, because you can't eat with a mask on. How are you gonna do that? Pull it away from your mouth for a second, put the food in, and you couldn't do it. So there was a lot of restaurants went to carry out or pick up at the curb type deal, just to be able to maintain some income. But yeah, it was a really, really tough time. And I know the kids growing up during that time, especially younger kids growing up in that time, maybe the youngest ones won't remember it, but other kids are gonna remember this. It was kind of it was huge. It was huge. It was like, for us, what 9/11 was for us, my generation, to these kids, COVID was theirs. Like, are we ever going to go back? My daughter once asked me, am I ever going to be able to go back to school without a mask on? Like, honey, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't answer that question, because at the time, it seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, we were just going to be stuck in this loop of social distancing, masks. You can't go to certain places that you used to enjoy going to. No more sleepovers with friends, holidays with family. There was that fear of, oh gosh, I don't want to have it, not know it, not being symptomatic, but have it and go give it to grandma, and it puts grandma in the hospital, right? There was the stress of, I don't want to risk, that happening. And my sister ended up in the hospital and on a respirator, but not from us, but she just had got it. Some people got it really bad. Some people didn't get it at all. But,
Yeah. So what I was going to say was, if you really think about how ridiculous a lot of that stuff got, I mean, they were, because COVID was going on right as I was starting to transition out of the United States Army. And so, but I remember they had canceled pretty much all PT. They sent soldiers home. I mean, they were like, stay in your barracks room,
Right.
or go home and be with your family, but don't come into work. And they did this for over a month.
Yeah.
And then we were coming in for the formations on Friday afternoons, and they're just making sure that you're still alive and kicking or whatever. But we tried to go, a couple of buddies of mine, we be in combat arms, any type of tactical job. I mean, you want to stay on top of your fitness, stay on top of your rucking, your running, your, pretty much anything that has to do with maneuverability.
Right.
And then you're sitting there and it's like, let's go for a ruck. And then we'd show up to a park, and law enforcement had a car out front in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we were on the Tennessee side of things, near Clarksville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And so you have a cop that would be sitting down there in the parking lot, and you get out and you'd be putting your ruck on. You're like, I'm going to go. And, and they're like, no, nobody can be out here. And it's like,
it's outside.
It's a freaking park, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he's got a mask on. He's wanting to know why you don't have a mask on. It's like, because I'm freaking outside,
Yes.
dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you're also, the funny nature behind it is, it was always funny to me, because it's like, you're talking to a guy that literally sleeps in a ditch with other dudes.
Yeah.
We're all together and all in close proximity to each other, all the time. And so it's kind of a ridiculous freaking thing. But then, so we were having to go across the state line into Kentucky. There's a park there called Land Between the Lakes.
Yeah.
And we would go up there, and that's where we would ruck, because they were open.
Right.
And we could go up there. We could go into the hills of Kentucky and go running.
Yeah.
So you got trail. I mean, it was great. But it was like we had to drive over an hour to be able to work out.
Yeah. Well,
And be outside.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It was kind of like that with Missouri and Illinois too, and we were close enough to the river that crossing the river into Missouri, things were that much different. It was wild. It's like you're living. It's almost like one of those movies, right, where this area is quarantined. Like, you could have just put a bubble over it, and then once you get out of there, it's like, oh my gosh, it's another world. Put it in perspective. During COVID, we decided as a family we're going to come down to visit my parents. We're getting out of Illinois for a little bit, came down to Florida, and we're masked up and ready to go. And I'm walking around Pier Park, and I'm like, nobody's got a mask on. Everybody's just walking around like there's no COVID. There's
Welcome
nothing
to America.
here. And I go, I'm just going to do it. I took my mask off. I'm like, It blew my mind though. Like I thought what was going on in Illinois was going on everywhere.
You know why? The UV rays of the sun here in Florida kills it, like on contact.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of it, right? It's the from your perspective when you first came down, it was the things are different in different places, and it's kind of hard to put together.
Yeah.
And the media lied so much through all that too, because they were like, "Oh, the numbers in Florida are worse than anywhere else because none of them are wearing masks." That's the reason why everybody comes here to go to our freaking parks.
Right,
like as far as like our people were moving here left and right.
Yeah.
It's like we have so many people here that want to get away from your freaking crazy, ideology of what's going on. And that's not to say, listen, I understand that people got sick.
Yeah.
I honestly, I got my own views on, the COVID. Here's the thing. COVID-19 was a political thing more than anything. I feel like
if it wasn't to start, it definitely turned into it.
Yeah. I think it was intentional. I think it was intentionally supposed to become that.
Yeah.
And I think it did. Yeah. It really did. I honestly believe 100% that's the reason why we're looking at a different president now. Is because of how the government handled COVID-19.
Yeah.
I believe that was a majority. When people had to vote this past election, when they went into that voting booth, they thought about, all right, this administration took freedoms away from me based on an illness.
Right.
And this administration over here on this side, the only thing they talk about is making sure that you're more liberated and have your rights never taken away.
Yeah.
So this past election was not Trump versus Biden. This past election was do we want to ever see our freedoms taken from us again and the government stand behind this, and basically be dictated to on how we will behave and what we will do, I really do. But I mean, I think that's more of a political statement, and I'm not a doctor. I think that there are a lot of doctors that were wrong throughout most of it. And I think that those doctors are being held accountable now.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I think that,
I got one.
Yeah.
So I'll tame it back more into storytelling than a political rant.
Okay.
And so, I mean, you had mentioned that your daughter would ask, like, if things would end. And I just kind of wanted to ask you, since you're a teacher, if you've seen kind of any lingering effects and how you think that this generation will kind of grow up with those years. I mean, you had said it was their 9/11, but for 9/11, it was a day for us, right?
Yes.
And we responded a long time.
Right.
And COVID was 3-ish years for them. It, how it tapered off in certain areas. Florida was probably quicker. But, some places, Colorado, I know was definitely, even after I moved there was some effects.
I got to think, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but I got to think that it has caused some social, I don't want to say issues, but social differences before COVID and then now because of the isolation and some very important years that maybe the kids didn't have, learning those social skills. I feel like that may have played a part of it. I definitely know that ever since COVID, homeschooling has shot through the roof.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, we're just going to homeschool, and this is an option, and this is what we're going to do. But as at my gym, I will say this, during my gym, we had a lot of homeschool parents that would bring their kids to the gym for that social interaction. So if they had an outlet for social interaction, that was different, right? But if it was one of those deals where, maybe the family doesn't want to send them to a gym and they're not in school anymore and they're not getting that social interaction, I got to feel like that's played a part to maybe their return to school being more difficult because they missed those years of social interaction with each other.
And so, kind of just asking more into it, obviously, we had dinner with Ron's parents. I was over there. But, his mom mentions that, she sees some of the younger kids that went through it during those years have trouble reading facial expressions. Do you think that's one of the ones, or
that's
proximity where they're like somewhat, if you ever do kind of probably as a police officer, like
Yeah.
hey, there's certain
Oh,
social
yeah.
distances
Yes, yeah.
that mean different things.
Yeah.
Americans are usually kind of a little farther away, but not
Right.
really 6 feet.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you see that to where if someone's within 6 feet, they get anxious, or like I said, the reading of facial expressions.
I don't. I honestly, I hadn't even thought about that because of the masks and because of just not being around people at the time. Even when they were allowed to be around people, having to be covered and not being able to see those facial expressions, I could definitely see that being a thing. I don't know. Now, listen, being down here and being with students down here would probably be different than it would be if I was back in Illinois and seeing what it was like, because I know those were the students that were, that weren't in school for a long time. And then when they were, they had to wear masks for a long time. Versus when I came down here, when I first came for my first day of being a teacher, I wore a mask into the school, and I'm like, nobody's got a mask on. Like, we're not doing that here. Like, they're like, it's up to you. If you want to wear it, you can, but you don't have to. And I'm like, students are not mandated to wear these? No, nothing like that. So I don't feel like the students down here had it as rough as obviously the students in Illinois would have had. And there would probably be more of that telltale signs of that in Illinois than there would be down here. I don't think I necessarily see that down here at all, as far as like there being the awkwardness or the facial expression thing. I think the kids around here, they definitely can understand my facial expressions. they know when Coach Tim's upset or versus when Coach Tim's happy to, something's going good. So no, I haven't seen it down here. I feel like that's actually probably pretty valid for the schools that were shut down for so long, or that maybe had to wear masks for so long. A valid argument that could be made for sure.
Yeah, and that was it for me. Like I said, it was mostly just I wanted to put it in perspective for people in Bay County, how different things really got.
I think Kendall's got a little bit of a unique story anyway. He's
more rabid on things, but trying to keep it positive.
When it comes to COVID stuff, Kendall was one of the ones that lost his job.
Yeah.
Because of not getting the vaccine
in Florida,
in the state of Florida, here, with a company, and having to move to be able to get a job that was comparable to his skill set, he had to move to Colorado to be able to. So the COVID-19 mask vaccine strikes a little bit differently with him than
sure.
most.
Yeah, for sure.
So I get it.
That's understandable. It's understandable.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, like I said, I can be, offline a little more rabid about it because of those, but I think it's good, especially since that's kind of your origin story, right?
Yep.
If when
it
first
was
started this.
That's why I kind of brought you here.
You're right. This did the whole Captain America getting out in the community actually, yes, absolutely happened during that time. During that time.
But you took something that was a freaking negative thing, and you flipped it, man.
Yeah, and then
but that's a very, very unique thing that a lot of people can't do.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there. It's really, really funny, man. And I know you know what I know you've seen this.
Yes,
but it's
sure.
like so many people like to look at themselves as being like this. Oh yeah, like I always take something negative and I make it positive, and that's how I get through my day, man. And they think that they're like this expert at it, but then you don't see them. But then you look at somebody like you who's actually doing that, and then you're like, okay, this guy is doing what a lot of people and a lot of people don't understand what it takes. But I think you literally took something, and I thought, man, dude, I'm gonna help you. I don't know how. I'm gonna do it.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate all the help I can get. Now, I want to be humble because I'm not. Listen,
you're a superhero,
it worked
bro.
out well, and it's continuing to do positive things for now Bay County and for surrounding communities. But listen, I fail at things all the time. I am a human. Underneath this, I'm still just Tim.
So we don't want to talk about those things.
Yeah,
we
don't want to talk about the great things. Only good
talk
things.
About this
but it is hard to stay positive all the time. And even though I look for the positive in every situation, listen, there's sometimes that you just get so much negativity that beats you down. Even at those points, it's like, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I just don't, is it worth it? And I ask myself those questions a lot on any given day. It could be about any given subject. Do I still want to do this? Do I want to move on to something else? Is it time to be done?
Yeah.
But then something happens Obviously, it's not because of me, right? God has a reason for me to be doing this. And he shows me, I'm not done with you yet. I'm not done with you doing what you're doing. And he has it in my heart. If it wasn't still in my heart, I'd just hang it up. I'd hang this all up and it'd be a little...
That's something that a lot of people don't talk about either. I mean, because obviously we started the podcast because we wanted to bring people like you on, people that were doing something in the community that was good, right? And so I read the comments, I see what people say, oh, Ron, you're a joke. You ran for office, you failed. Now you're just trying to, pick yourself back up and you're trying to make this into a positive thing, so I get made fun of for it. I'm sure, and I don't even... Throwing on a superhero costume to an adult sounds ridiculous, but to children it makes their day.
Right.
And so when people sit there and they try to do like these negative things to try to bring you down in your life, like it was something me and my wife really had to encourage me. A couple of weeks ago, we had somebody on, and I just got like hate mail, Karen hate mail.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like people that just. You do not, and like that's what my wife had to do, man. She had to sit there, and I was just like, you know what? Why am I doing this? It takes me, I'll have a 5 or 4 hour, podcast, and I turn it into 2 hours and 30 minutes through editing, and it's about 9 hours worth of work to be able to do something like that. Then on top of that, I mean, Kendall, works his ass off to make sure that our posts are going up. We're trying to respond to people. My phone won't stop ringing off the freaking hook because people want to come on. Like now, it wasn't like that at the beginning. Now, no, it wasn't like that at the beginning. Actually, nobody wanted to come on the show because they thought that like I was trying to be another one of these local guys who want to try to catch somebody saying something they weren't supposed to. And so a lot of people, but now people know that that's not what I'm about. I'm actually trying to help the community and get people's messages out there on what's going on. Because right now, nobody knows, who knows about the Rainey thing. Now, I'm not saying that you guys haven't had you guys have had a good turnover on that. But right now, the more podcasts there are and the more people that are getting that message out there, the better.
Yes, for sure.
So like we were talking about the new podcast studio that's downtown Harrison. Dude, I think it's great. People have been like, oh, you got a podcast, you got competition coming your way. I'm like, I don't look at it as competition. I look at it as more people that give a damn. I think it's a good thing. I encourage that. I want that to happen. Because right now, the people that have shows that are locally, everything's on the negative. And so, but the thing about it is like that whole thing that you're saying, like being able to stay on track to think about why you're doing something. Like my wife sitting down and being like, these people that are negative about what you're doing, what are they doing? Oh, you did a fucky fuck post on Facebook talking about, whatever corruption it is that you uncovered today. Well, that's fine because I had the person that lost their home to a fire on. I had the guy that dresses up like Captain America and gives hope to children that have cancer. That right there, dude, I'm doing what I'm doing. You stay focused on what you got going on. And to do that, though, it's not easy.
No.
And I know you know that. So, and I think what you're doing is freaking great. Like, I think it's awesome.
I appreciate it.
And with Ron's, with that statement on that, I just kind of wanted to say, he probably hinted, and I know like some cosplayers probably understand where it's like you get kind of made fun of when you get older. I hit my 30s and I'm still a cosplayer. I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. But I just kind of wanted to put it out there that, I mean, obviously you give hope to children, but I mean, I think you also inspire adults because you're helping the youngest among us that need help in a dire time. And your uniform as Captain America also resonates with their inner child. That makes them to where you become the character, kind of, right? Even for the adults, the older people, because there you are, dressed in uniform, helping a kid. And I think, like you said, that's all what it's about. It's not necessarily what was in the books, but the symbol.
Right.
We stand behind Bay County Captain